Francisco Goya was a Spanish painter and illustrator during the Romantic period in Europe. He was the court painter for the Spanish monarchy and produced paintings and drawings that used images of horror to criticize his culture and the violent parts of human nature. During the 17th and 18th centuries, a movement called the Enlightenment took hold of Europe. During that time, people became interested more in science than art. The Romantic period in Europe was a reaction against the Enlightenment. Many artists and citizens felt that the strict science of the Enlightenment had taken all the emotion out of art and all the mystery out of nature. Romantic painters tried to create images that were mystical, strange, and often disturbing. They often used horror as a way to show that emotion and human nature is more complex than the scientific thinkers of the Enlightenment gave it credit for. In his work, Goya would sometimes create monsters and strange mythological creatures. In his drawing, The Folly of Fear, an enormous creature in a robe is sending a group of soldiers into a panic. His print, The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters, shows a man sleeping at his desk surrounded by creatures from a nightmare. Goya often used horror in his paintings to criticize war and violence. He felt that war was wrong, and if people would not listen to their conscience, then large-scale violence and war would always be a part of life. Later in his life, Goya painted a book of illustrations called The Disasters of War. In it were 80 drawings of extremely violent scenes showing the horror of war and what he thought were the causes of it. The book was not published until 35 years after his death because the government did not want it to be sold. Goya's style of painting was much different than the painters that had come before him. He used thicker brush strokes and strong colors instead of fine detail. The Impressionist painters Manet and Monet would be inspired by his work later on and create their own style.